I would just jog at home. Yeah, that really started to get quite gnarly. I love that though. You have to like lean into it and be like, if you want that next marathon to go well, just work. I think that's the difference between like a big result and an okay result. That you don't view it as, oh no, 12 minutes of the push to go. You view it as, ah shit, I've only 12 more minutes here to really get fitness out of today and want to work, want to push. That's what makes a difference.
When it comes to doing well in your next marathon, it becomes vitally important that you start getting the most out of your long runs. I've been doing this a long time. I have a lot of experience when it comes to racing well on race day, but then I also have the opposite end of the spectrum where I've not raced very well on race day, even though some of the training in that build-up looked pretty good. Maybe the track stuff was going good, maybe some of the shorter tempo sort of work was going well. But then when I look back and I really look at it in detail, the longer days that I did perhaps do in that build up, perhaps I was a little exposed on those days. And so it is a process. You can't just jump straight into a brilliant long run, and you do have to build things up. But that's what we're going to talk about today. I want to make sure before your next marathon, you're making the most of your long runs, you're recovering as best you can from those long runs, and they're really helping you be prepared for the specifics of what you're going to face on race day. But let's jump into it. So in a world of we must sort of practice what we preach, I did a long run video just over a week ago now, and one of the key lines in there was, if you're wearing super shoes on your long run day, to make it easier, throw them in the bin. So of course today I'm not wearing super shoes. I'm out here doing a long run. It's 16 miles. It's roughly 1 hour 40 minutes, and it's broken up into 10 minutes easy, 60 minutes at a sort of steadier effort, 20 minutes moving into, there's no real limit on how hard I work in that period. I'm not going to go crazy ridiculous. I'll have already ran for 70 minutes, so it's not going to be crazy ridiculously hard. But the goal there is really to just work. See what you've sort of got in the legs, see what you've got in the tank, and just push it along a little bit. You end that with a little bit of an easier period, and that sort of brings me back to the car for 16 miles. So I think I went the entire year of 2024 waiting until the very end of my videos and then saying like, subscribe, do all those lovely things. But I'm going to do you one better today. You'll see the tights that I'm wearing in today's video. They're called pocket tights. They're on my website, 262clothes.com. You can fit anything from 5 to 6 gels in each zip pocket, which is brilliant for the likes of a long run like today. I have 3 to 4 in each pocket today, and what I'm going to do is, if you like, subscribe and comment below, you'll enter a competition for a free pair of these tights. All you've got to do is comment below, what are your goals for 2025? And more importantly, what are you perhaps going to change or tweak going into 2025 that might make that goal become a reality? It's all well and good setting a big goal, but often the difference between achieving a big goal versus not achieving a big goal is making some changes, accepting some hard truths, and then doing something about what might be holding you back. So comment below, like, subscribe, do all those lovely things, or you can just do them anyway, but you will be entered into that competition if you comment something like that below. So the first thing that you're looking to do is really decide, it's called a long run, but a long run for everybody is going to be slightly different. I'm doing 16 mile today. I did 17 mile last week. I had done 12 to 13 mile for sort of consecutive weekends. So me moving it to 16 or me moving it to 17 last week, well, that was a bit of a stretch from 12 to 13. So you need to make a decision based on your current level of experience. If you're new to running, you might want to progress things from a 10 to 15%, perhaps not 20% more, which means if you did 10 mile, you might want to add an extra 1.5 miles, 2 mile maximum, and just be careful with it. If you are a bit more experienced and the reason you've only been running 7, 8 miles lately is because you haven't been that motivated or you hadn't entered a marathon yet, perhaps you can progress anything from 2 to 3 miles per weekend. So when you're making that decision of how long should I go, there's no one size fits all. It really depends on your experience and it depends on what you've been doing lately. Please don't go from 5, 6 miles into 14 or 15. You're kind of asking for trouble. Let's not get injured, before you even start to being able to implement some of these good long runs. And that first long run that you're going to do is just time and distance. And then you're hopefully going to execute your long run like I did today. That's what we're here to talk about, in a sort of way that becomes much more specific to race day. So the second talking point today is kit, fuel, etc. I personally choose probably anti-chafing kit. I think naturally you would, because it's a longer run, you might sweat more, but it really depends on the weather. Pick the kit that makes sense for the weather that you're sort of up against, which means if you need a jacket, you need a jacket. You need long tights, you need long tights. But really, more importantly, is being able to carry some of your fuel. So of course I'm wearing my pocket tights, but there's other things out there like waistbands, there's hydration vests that I know some people like. But where I'm going with this is you must wear in these long runs in training what you intend to wear on race day. So the mistake I don't want you to make is to get to race day, order the belt, order the hydration vest, etc., etc. And then they arrive and you've no time to test them before race day. And then you find on race day, they sit funny, they jump up and down. Can somebody please comment below and tell me how many times you've done that and when you're going to learn from your mistakes? So let's not sort of order things last minute to carry your gels, to carry your liquids. Make sure you're practicing that in the build-up. That's what's really important here. The reason I'm wearing my pocket tights and I'm practicing gels is because I'm actually not finding it easy to get into marathons, to get elite starts. The benefit of an elite start is your gels, your drinks, they're all on tables during the race. So I, like you guys, I'm now having to practice taking that gel on board during the run and carrying it myself. I like to carry it in the tights. I don't wear a waistband, and I certainly will not be running with a hydration vest jumping up and down, but I'm more than happy to just use gels, and that becomes super important in my build up to be practicing this stuff, to be building from being able to sort of handle 60 grams per hour of just gels right up to probably 80 or 90 come race day. That'll be the goal, but I'll practice it in the build up, and I sure as shit will not be ordering a hydration vest or a waist thing the week before the race and not practicing that. So please practice. So I told you briefly the rundown of today's long run, but really this is where I want to get into more of a conversation than a telling you what to do or a 5 types type YouTube video. When you're setting off in a long run, it's an important day in a marathon build-up. I think a long run is an important day in every build-up, but more so in the marathon, because it is 26.2 miles, and you do want to callous the body physically and sort of the psychology around being out there for a bit longer, being uncomfortable for a bit longer, your feet getting sore. The long run I did last week, my feet were actually probably what bothered me the most, and that tells you that I've only been doing 11, 12 miles lately, and then you go a bit further, 16, 17, and little things hurt, sometimes physical, sometimes psychological, sometimes fitness. So it's a really important day to build your plan around, but treat it like that. Don't show up to a long run late. Don't show up without any sort of like focus or concentration. Treat it almost not as serious as race day, but treat it like a day. This is an important day. So that means showing up in good time so you can stretch a bit before, so you can do a little bit of the activation stuff, so that before you leave the house, you can prepare your gels, etc. Don't show up late, not have any gels. Start taking your shit seriously if you want race day to go well. That's a really nice way of saying that, in a not so nice way. The more serious you start treating that long run day, and the more I'm not talking about getting yourself all amped up or, you know, listening to a rave on the way to the long run. I just mean be organized. Have things in a good place. Have your gels, have your kit, have a towel for after, have a recovery drink for after. Be prepared. Then when it actually comes to executing the long run, today what I did was some stretches, some drills. I arrived about 15 to 20 minutes early. As I was sort of walking around with Thor, my dog, I was doing little bits of stretching. I was doing little bits of activation while he sort of played. But then it means when you're in the sort of warm-up part, you just feel way better. You don't feel like you just got out of bed. You don't feel stiff. You don't feel sore. You've helped your body a little bit. You can take that first 10 to 15 minutes, you know, nice and relaxed. There's no urgency. Just like race day, you get a little bit of a warm up. It's sort of the same on long run day. Where I start to focus is when I move into that steadier sort of phase. And this is probably the difference between super shoes and not wearing super shoes, is when I'm not wearing the super shoes, I even find the likes of the steady portion, I have to sort of focus a little bit. And by focus a little bit, I mean, okay, Stephen, now you need to sort of be switched on. And if you're not switched on and you're not mentally switched on and you're not holding the cadence, then the speed drops. When you're wearing super shoes, I swear it does all that for you. You can mentally switch off a little bit and that nice cadence sort of stays. When you're not wearing them, you have to, put in that effort. You have to put in that work to hold that rhythm, to hold that pace, and to keep that sort of heart rate up a little bit. And I think it becomes more physical. And then, of course, you have the advantage on race day of you don't have to try as much because you've got the super shoes on. So I think that's really important. But I start to concentrate, I start to focus, and then I start to lean into that steady sort of section. I'm making sure that I'm not overworking, and I sort of keep an eye on that pulse. I try to keep the heart rate around sort of 150, and I don't really want it to creep. I did not look at pace, and I mean this. I'm not lying. I didn't look at pace once during this entire run. Not once. I only looked at pulse. And I was also, I've been doing this a long time, so I was able to just find the right rhythm and the right effort. And there was only a few times I looked down and I maybe seen 154, 155 pulse, and then I had to sort of back off a little bit. And then once I've sort of done that 1 hour of like steady-ish running, I'm taking on fuel every 10 minutes, which gives me something psychological to, think about. So I'm breaking it down into these 10-minute chunks, and then I take on half a, bit of a gel. And I was trying to operate at 60 grams roughly per hour, which I know on race day I need to jump to 90, but I'm so used to having the elite setup where I'm allowed to take liquids. And so it's a transition to be able to handle maybe 80 or 90 grams of gel per hour without upsetting the stomach. And that'll happen over the next couple of months, but I'm practicing it. So that gives you almost a little distraction. Every sort of like 10 to 15 minutes, you're taking on fuel. And the next part of it is you're gearing up to have somewhere to go when you start perhaps that little bit of a pickup. My run last week, I didn't have any pickup. It was a sort of smooth transition back to long runs where I said, look, just work at a sort of steady effort for 15, 16 mile. And that's what I did. So once you've done your steadier period, and last week, like I said, the entire run was a bit steady, then you move into, this little bit of a push phase. I am a big fan of not really worrying about pace during this phase. And yes, in some of my training plans, there's, zone 3, possibly it goes up to zone 4 in that longer run. I don't think it does. But really, I'm pushing today probably up into sort of zone 3, zone 4. You can do that because you're not really going to knacker yourself because you're already a bit tired. So you can't really overdo it because that tiredness is already built in. I like to feel that discomfort because that's what you're going to face on race day. So I really like to work pretty hard during this section. First 5 minutes, I just make sure I'm working a bit harder than steady. That next 5 minutes, I'm really getting into a good effort. The 5 minutes after that, I'm sort of starting to push a bit. And then those final 5 minutes of the 20, I'm really working. I want to feel that hurt that you end up having to go through on race day for, can be 1 hour, can be an hour and a half. You have to have experienced that in training if you believe you're going to be able to handle it on race day. So if you have some long runs planned with a little bit of a push, feel free to sort of get stuck in. I would actually recommend it. And that's now what we're going to talk about next. When it comes to long runs, what's negotiable and what's non-negotiable. So for me, the absolute non-negotiables is the likes of distance. I think super shoes, you need to make a really honest sort of assessment of, are you wearing these super shoes to make it easier? And then sort of period. I still managed to pack the super shoes for my long run, but then got there and went, what are you even thinking? You're only wearing them because it makes it a bit easier, or it makes you a little bit like faster and it feel easier. And that's not what we're looking for here. We're looking for this to prepare us for race day. I said in my last video, training is not set up to massage the ego. It's not set up to be super, super fast. It's set up to prepare you well for race day. So I think super shoes for me are non-negotiable, but you can give your honest opinion and yeah, I'll agree or disagree. Super shoes, non-negotiable. The reason I said distance is non-negotiable is because, again, if you've planned, let's say you've gone from 12 to 14 to 16 to 18, if you've planned an 18-mile run and it starts to get really tough, you kind of just have to get through it. And I say that because you're trying to teach your body to manage still going when it's tired, still going when it's running out of fuel, and that's what you're going to face on race day. So it might feel horrible at the time, but you'll be so grateful for it on race day, because that's where the mantra comes from, just another Sunday. If you give up on all your Sundays or your long run days leading into the marathon, well then it's just another Sunday where you'll probably give up again. And that's harsh and it's blunt, but it's a fact. That's kind of the way this works. What you do in the build up will help prepare you for what you can end up managing on race day. It's that simple. Another non-negotiable is practice your fueling strategy. Cannot sort of recommend that highly enough. Do not go into race week without practicing what you're fueling. Do not just jump on the course and start taking on board what they have on the course. If you're planning to take on board what they have on the course, guess what? Practice it in the build-up. Some of the negotiables. Personally, I think you can work in the, 10 minutes easy, 60 minutes steady, 20 minute pickup, 10 minutes easy. These are the things you can move around. 50 minutes steady, 30 minute pickup, 40 minutes steady, 45 minute pickup, but you do it in a 15, 15, 15 sort of way. That's the negotiables. How you break that long run down. Listen, running is pretty damn tough. If you drive to your long run on a Sunday, you're not super motivated about it, and for whatever reason in your head it's thinking, hey, I kind of want to do 10 minutes easy, 60 minutes steady, and then instead of the 20 minutes hard in one go, I'll do 5 times 4 minutes with a 1 minute sort of, recovery a little bit. Go for it. Sometimes you have to work within what the brain is motivated for that day. And I think that's where you have to be negotiable. You can be negotiable on what day you do the long run. If you find yourself a little bit tired and you really want to focus on it, you can move it to another day. That's pretty much the long run. A good one for me today, this is going to carry you through your next marathon if you start to get this right. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I'm grateful that you watch my videos. I'm grateful for the support. You can check out 262clo.com. I'd really appreciate that. You can like, subscribe. Maybe you entered today's competition. You'll find out in the next video who won that competition. And as always, take care. Don't be so hard on yourself. Start making these long runs and start making them a priority and start giving them the focus that they deserve. And likely your next marathon depends on making these a priority and giving them that focus. But take care. All the best.